It was a humid night in the swamps of Louisiana, thick with the scent of moss and the sound of chirping crickets. Wyatt had lived by the bayou all his life, and swore he knew the land better than anyone. But that night, as the moon hung heavy in the sky, something was different. The usual stillness of the swamp felt, well, disturbed. Wyatt had gone out to check on a few of his traps when he heard it, a low, guttural growl from deep within the shadows of the cypress trees. He froze, every hair on the back of his neck standing up. It wasn't a gator. He knew that sound all too well. This was something else, something much, much larger. The growl echoed, bouncing off the trees, and the sound of movement, a heavy, deliberate stride through the water, the splash of thick, muscled legs making their way through the marsh. Wyatt turned his flashlight toward the noise, but the beam barely cut through the thick fog rolling in from the water. He could just make out the shape of something massive crouched in the reeds. Its glowing eyes peered out at him. The eyes. They weren't human. More like those of a wolf, wild, predatory, and filled with hunger. Before Wyatt could react, the creature stood, revealing its full form. Towering over 7 feet tall, it was covered in thick, matted fur, its long arms dangling by its sides, tipped with claws as sharp as knives. Its head was that of a beast, elongated snout, sharp, snarling teeth, and those glowing eyes that never blinked. The body was almost human in shape, but there is no mistaking the sheer power rippling beneath its fur. And then it took a step forward. Wyatt stumbled back, tripping over the twisted roots of a tree, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature let out a snarl, so deep it vibrated through his bones. Wyatt scrambled to his feet and ran, the sounds of splashing water and snapping branches following him all the way home. He never looked back, and even now, when he does, he closes his eyes at night. Those glowing eyes are all he can see, watching him from the darkness. Tonight, we look at the Rougarou. The Rougarou, a creature of legend, terrorizes the marshlands and bayous of Louisiana, stalking its prey under the cover of darkness, standing anywhere from 7 feet tall to 10 feet tall. It is often described as a towering, muscular figure covered in thick, dark fur with the head of a wolf or large canine. Its eyes are said to glow an eerie, unnatural red or yellow, piercing through the gloom like fiery embers in the night. The Rougarou's arms are long, ending in razor-sharp claws capable of rending flesh from bone, while its feet are more like those of a man, large, powerful, and adapted to moving silently through the swamp. Its teeth are jagged, like a row of daggers meant for tearing through its prey. The creature moves with a terrifying grace, capable of slipping between trees and through water with barely a sound. It's the blend of human and beast that gives the Rougarou its fearsome reputation. More than just a werewolf, the Rougarou is a cursed being born of ancient folklore and dark rituals. The origins of it trace back to the French and Cajun legends. Some say that the creature is the result of a curse placed upon those who break Lent, a punishment from the old Catholic traditions, dooming the sinner to take the form of the beast for 101 days. During this time, the cursed individual prowls the swamps, driven by a relentless hunger for human flesh. At the end of those days, the curse can be passed on to another, often through a single bite, or it can be lifted if the person remains undiscovered. Other versions of the story tell of witches and voodoo practitioners who summon the Rougarou to exact revenge or torment on their enemies. These versions often portray the creature as a shapeshifter, a person cursed to transform into the beast at night, but able to resume their human being form during the day. It is said to haunt the darkest, most remote areas of the swamp. Thriving in isolation, it hides in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, often stalking its prey for days before making its move. Some believe that seeing the Rougarou is a bad omen, a sign that death or misfortune will soon follow. A woman named June had her own terrifying encounter with the Rougarou while walking home late one evening. She had taken a shortcut through the woods, the air thick with the scent of pine and stagnant water. The bayou, usually a place she felt comfortable in, seemed to shift that night. At first she thought it was just her imagination when she heard the snapping of twigs behind her, but as she picked up her pace, so did the sound. It wasn't until she glanced over her shoulder that she saw it, a hulking figure darting between the trees, moving faster than any animal she had ever seen. She described the creature as having eyes like molten fire, burning through the darkness. It was like looking straight into hell, she later told friends, her voice trembling. It moved on all fours at times, then stood upright, towering over her in the shadows, its broad chest rising and falling with deep, unnatural breaths. She could smell it, a mix of wet fur, decaying wood, and something far worse, like rotting meat left too long in the sun. Her blood ran cold as the creature let out a howl so fierce it rattled the leaves above her. The very trees seemed to bend in response to the noise. She ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but she swears that as she fled, she could feel the beast's hot breath on the back of her neck, as if it was just toying with her, letting her escape just for the thrill of the hunt. She didn't stop until she was safely inside her house, slamming the door behind her. Even then, she swore she heard scratching at the walls, as though the beast was marking her home. Then there's Remy, a seasoned trapper who has lived in the swamps for most of his life. He swore up and down that the Rougarou had been stalking him for years, always just out of their reach, but close enough to send a chill down his spine. On several occasions, he claimed to have heard the low growl of the beast circling his cabin at night, its heavy footfalls squelching in the mud outside, just beyond the safety of his porch. The sound would always stop suddenly, as if the creature knew exactly where he was, but chose not to attack. Yet. Remy described one particularly harrowing night, when he caught a glimpse of the creature through his cabin window. It had been raining heavy, the wind howling through the leaves. Then he heard the Rougarou's familiar growl. This time it was different. It wasn't just lurking, it was close. Too close. When he peered out, his heart nearly stopped. I saw its eyes first, Remy would recount, his voice hushed and shaken. They were glowing, bright as lanterns in the dark, and its face. I ain't never seen anything like that before. It was like a wolf, but the eyes. They were smart, too calculating. The creature was hunched over, sniffing at the ground near the cabin's edge, its long, clawed fingers digging into the wet earth. Remy dared not move, barely even breathed, as he watched the beast rise to its full height, towering over the small clearing. It let out a low, guttural growl, its teeth bared, saliva dripping from its snarling jaws. Remy stayed up all night gripping his shotgun, waiting for the creature to try and break in. But when the morning sun finally came, the Rougarou was gone, leaving only deep claw marks gouged in the side of his cabin as a reminder of how close it had come. Then there's Danny, a teenager with a penchant for pushing limits. Along with a group of friends, Danny had ventured deep into the swamp to camp for the night, seeking a thrill by daring to spend a night where the Rougarou was rumored to roam. It started as a joke, with the boys laughing and telling ghost stories around the fire, but as the night grew darker, the sounds of the swamp began to change. What had once been a typical croaking of frogs and rustling of leaves turned eerily silent. Danny described the moment the air shifted, heavy, thick, almost suffocating. Then came the howling, a bone-chilling, blood-curdling howl that seemed to reverberate off the trees, echoing all around him. It was the howl of an ordinary animal. It was like a man screaming, but it was deeper, more primal, Danny said, his hands shaking as he recalled the memory. The group, once laughing and bold, grew quiet, their faces pale in the glow of the fire. That's when they saw it, far in the distance, a pair of glowing eyes watching them from the tree line. The figure, though distant, seemed massive, its silhouette almost bending with the night until it moved, slipping between the trees with unsettling speed. One moment, it was there. The next, it was gone, only to reappear closer, circling their camp like a predator sizing up its prey. Terrified, the boys abandoned their campsite, sprinting through the trees in the dead of the night, leaving behind their gear and all sense of pride. When they returned the next morning, everything had been destroyed. The tents were shredded, the coolers overturned, and deep claw marks were gouged in the trees surrounding the campsite. The beast had toyed with them, watching from the darkness, and had only spared them because it wanted to. Danny never returned to that part of the swamp again. Sylvia was a skeptic, a firm believer that legends of the Rougarou were nothing more than local lore, designed to scare outsiders and keep children from wandering too deep into the woods. But that changed one summer night when she was driving along a deserted road just outside the bayou. The full moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the dense woods on either side of the road. She was driving home from visiting a friend, her windows down, enjoying the cool night air when she saw something dart across the road ahead of her. At first, she thought it was a deer, or maybe a large dog, but as she slowed her car and got a closer look, she realized it was far too large for either. It was standing right there, right in the middle of the road, just staring at me, Sylvia recalled, her eyes wide with the memory. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. It looked like a wolf, but bigger, standing on its hind legs, its arms hanging down with these massive claws at the ends. Sylvia's car headlights illuminated the creature fully, revealing its muscular frame covered in thick, matted fur, its snout elongated with rows of sharp teeth gleaming in the night. The creature's eyes, glowing a vibrant, fiery yellow, were locked onto hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a sudden, unnatural speed, the creature bolted off into the woods, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. When she got home, Sylvia sat in her car for nearly an hour, unable to shake the image of the creature from her mind. To this day, she refuses to drive that road alone at night. Then there's Paul, a fisherman who'd spent most of his life navigating the swamps and bayous of Louisiana. Paul had always heard the tales of the Rougarou, but never believed in them, chalking it up to old wives' tales meant to scare newcomers. That was until one fateful night when he was out on his boat, drifting along a quiet stretch of water, casting lines under the pale moonlight. Paul said it started with the sound of something large moving through the water just beyond his boat. At first he thought it was a gator, but then he saw it, a dark, hulking figure moving along the bank, following his boat as it drifted downstream. Paul quickly reeled in his lines, his heart racing as he watched the creature move closer, its eyes glowing in the dark like two burning coals. The beast, as he later realized, was stalking him. As the creature moved, it never broke eye contact with Paul, its lips curling into a small snarl, exposing sharp, jagged teeth. It followed his boat for what felt like hours, slipping in and out of the shadows, always watching, always waiting. Paul never returned to that stretch of swamp again. He quit fishing not long after, convinced that the Rougarou had marked him. The Rougarou is more than just a myth. Its haunting presence lurking in the shadows has left a trail of terrified witnesses who will never forget the night they came face to face with the beast. Some are lucky enough to survive, while others are never seen again, vanishing into the depths of the swamp, becoming just another piece of the legend. The Rougarou, whether a creature of folklore, a shapeshifter, or something far more sinister, continues to stalk the edges of civilization, haunting the remote swamps and forgotten roads. For centuries, people have shared stories of this terrifying beast, each encounter more chilling than the last. But is the Rougarou merely a tale told to keep children from wandering too far in the woods? Or is it something more to the legends, something real, waiting in the darkness? That's for you to decide. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, don't forget to follow us for more bone-chilling stories. And if you have your own experience with supernatural, share it with us. We may just feature your story in an upcoming episode. Until next time, keep your eyes open and remember, some legends are born from truth.